Sarah Dunau. Northampton. A former fraternity treasurer at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, convicted in 2017 of embezzling more than $130,000, is asking that his monthly $100 restitution payment be reduced. Christopher Estes, 55, pleaded guilty to embezzling from the Alpha Tau Gamma fraternity, which is located at 118 Sunset Avenue in Amherst. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail, which his attorney argued at the time would hinder his ability to repay the money. The sentence Estes was handed specified that he spend 1 year at the Hampshire Jail and House of Correction, with the second year of his sentence being suspended for 5 years while he's on probation. Estes has since been released from jail. Karina Burnham, Estes' attorney, said in Hampshire Superior Court Monday that Estes' lease on his apartment was soon going to be up and that he'd be moving to a residence where his rent will be higher. As such, she requested a hearing to examine lowering Estes' monthly restitution payment. She also noted that her client is current on his restitution payments. Assistant District Attorney Stephen Gagney requested time to be able to see documentation of Estes' change in living situation. The hearing will take place Wednesday, August 28th at 2 p.m. in Superior Court. Granby, Belchertown, and others latest to land Green Communities grants by Hannah Nelson. Granby. Several towns in Hampshire and Franklin counties have landed grant money for clean energy products in their communities. The local grants, ranging from about $248,000 for Granby to $47,000 for Belchertown, are part of a $14.7 million handed out by the state to 80 communities. Granby will use its $248,702 to make 5 town-owned buildings, including the junior-senior high school and the Council on Aging, more energy efficient, according to Energy Committee Chairman Jan Joyce. After changes of these buildings are made, Granby's carbon footprint should decrease by 8%, according to the Department of Energy Resources. Joyce said that Granby also receives $40,373 from National Grid for applying energy-saving incentives, bringing the total funding to improve the efficiency of municipal buildings to $289,075. Belchertown will use its $46,897 for a new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning heat pump system and LED lighting at the Family Center. Deerfield, meanwhile, received $116,082, of which about $100,000 will go to upgrading its elementary school's insulation, heating, and lighting, said Town Administrator Wendy Foxman. We're really thrilled at how it turned out, Foxman said, referring to the sum Deerfield was awarded. She credited it to Energy Committee Chairman David Gilbert Keith. Other communities to receive grants include Pelham at $31,059 and Williamsburg at $28,149. Cities and towns must meet several criteria to be designated a green community and be eligible for funding. These criteria include passing zoning and approving an expedited application and permitting for alternative energy generating facilities, minimizing the amount of energy used to construct new buildings, purchasing hybrid or electric vehicles for municipal use, and ultimately reaching 20% reduction in energy use after 5 years. Democratic hopefuls in 3rd Hampshire District see eye to eye on social issues by Scott Mersbach. Amherst. Protecting undocumented immigrants, ensuring sufficient funding for education and transportation, promoting single-payer health care, and guaranteeing reproductive rights are policies for which the Democratic candidates for the 3rd Hampshire District are pledging to stand. I believe the essence of government is to respond to the needs of our communities and the most vulnerable, said Mindy Dahm, executive director of the Amherst Survival Center, noting that her professional career has focused on caring for all people in the community. "The very first thing I'd want to do is pass the Safe Communities Act," said Eric Nakajima, chairman of the Amherst-Pelham Regional School Committee, calling this an urgent need to give comfort to undocumented residents living in Massachusetts. In a forum Wednesday at the Bangs Community Center that brought out about 75 residents, Nakajima and Dom explained why there should be the Democratic nominee for the 3rd Hampshire District, which consists of Amherst, Pelham, and Precinct 1 in Granby. They will face off in a primary September 4th, with the winner taking on incumbent Solomon Goldstein Rose, independent from Amherst, in the November 6th general election. The forum was sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Amherst, the Daily Hampshire Gazette, Amherst Media, and WSHM. Both candidates expressed concern about the recent Supreme Judicial Court decision striking down the Fair Share Amendment that was to have come before voters this fall. Nakajima said he still supports the concept of a progressive income tax and assessing a tax on those earning $1 million or more, with the additional money targeted for education and transportation. "The truth is, we're absolutely starving our infrastructure in the state," Nakajima said. But he said he understands that other ways will have to be found to get this revenue. "I'd look for solutions we can do short of a constitutional amendment to raise the revenue we need," Nakajima said. Dom said legislators have to continue to make the case for the Fair Share Amendment. "We need to raise revenues, there's no doubt about it," Dom said. She would keep the issue at the forefront on Beacon Hill. "I'd like a Fair Share Amendment to pass the legislature. I'd be very happy to have my name on it," Dom said. Dom said public transportation is essential for the district. "It helps people get to work. It helps economies," Dom said. Nakajima said public transportation can be improved by building support for increased funding among other legislators. "Our regional transit authorities are being underfunded across the region," he said. "The recent $1 billion surplus in the state budget could be put to good use," the candidate said. "What I would like to do is fully fund a number of our education accounts," Nakajima said, adding that he supports debt-free college. Dom said her priority is for K-12 education programs and for the University of Massachusetts budget. "The high tuition, high debt model," Dom said, "is problematic. I think student debt is one of the biggest shames we have as a community," Dom said. Healthcare. Both candidates said single-payer health care, or Medicare for all, should be a priority for legislative action. "My approach is to diffuse fear and concerns about single-payer and replace it with facts and information," Dom said. Nakajima said he is deeply committed to single-payer health care, but believes that it may take having voters throughout the state formally express support for its adoption. "We're going to probably need a ballot initiative," Nakajima said, pointing to the success this had in moving the legislature to take up the $15 minimum wage and paid family leave. Charter school funding, they agreed, is worrisome. "The way we are funding charters is an absolute travesty. It's absolutely devastating school districts," Nakajima said. Dom said parents should have the right to send their children to any public school, but money for school districts should not be pitted against money for charter schools. "The funding is completely unfair, and public schools, as a result, are not on a level playing field," Dom said. On the environment, implementing a carbon pollution tax is something both would support, though Dom said she cautions that carbon pricing and increasing the gas tax would have an impact on people who are struggling to make ends meet. She supports going to 100% renewable energy sources by 2050. Nakajima said there need to be expanded resources for promoting a sustainable economy. I think there are multiple programs that we need to be able to support to green our infrastructure and put ourselves in a better position economically, Nakajima said. Reproductive rights. Reproductive rights are essential to protect in Massachusetts, they said, especially if the Supreme Court overturns the Roe v. Wade decision that made abortion legal. The candidates expressed support for the legislature this week, rescinding laws still on the books prohibiting abortion, and suggested the state should take action to repeal parental consent for teenagers. Nakajima said 2018 is a scary time with the Trump administration in power, but he hopes this represents the last gasps of a racist, sexist, and xenophobic regime. Everyone has to stand up and be counted now, he said. He said the Democratic Party needs to stand for social, economic, and environmental justice for everyone. Dom said Democrats should find ways to resist the president's agenda by reducing economic inequality, addressing devastating climate effects, and resisting the corrupt federal government's inhumane policies. We have to stand for economic equality, voter engagement, and making voting easier, Dom said. Despite our challenges, I'm deeply hopeful about the direction of our Commonwealth, Nakajima said. Falls Fest to return to South Hadley this Saturday by Sarah Robertson. South Hadley. The annual Falls Fest, a free day-long music and arts festival put on by Music and Arts South Hadley, is set for Saturday at Beach Grounds Park in South Hadley. The event will feature an eclectic music lineup, vendors, local craft beer and food trucks, according to Ira Brzezinski, president of Music and Arts South Hadley, and a select board member. Each year it has grown, Brzezinski said. The very first year we did it all on our own was in 2013. Then a few people in the region took notice and came out to help us, so we started to grow. After a year-long hiatus, the festival returned in 2017, and this year will mark the 5th rendition of the festival. This year, for the first time, Music and Arts South Hadley have hired an outside company, Laudable Productions of East Hampton, to help organize the event and book musical acts. The company has helped organize other recent events like Mill Pond Live, the Springfield Jazz and Roots, and the River Roll and Stroll. As you can see, our festival is growing up, said Laudable Productions producer Cassandra Holden. We're making South Hadley a destination for music and art, rivaling our neighbors who often garner more attention from the local press. The festival is part of a larger effort to revitalize the South Hadley community and bring more visibility and access to the Falls neighborhood. Brzezinski said event organizers will be expanding shuttle and valet parking services into Holyoke, too, to promote more attendees to the free community event. We think it's working, and we intend to continue, Brzezinski said. We think it's become a reason for people to come to town, and specifically the Falls neighborhood. This year's expanded musical lineup offers more international acts than ever before, including La Cow Music from Haiti, Corazon de Granada from Spain, and Latin Grammy Award winner Mr. G, who will serve as the MC. From New York, the salsa sensation Ola Fresca will perform, as will Chatham County Line from North Carolina. Locally, the Charles Majid Greeley Jazz Ensemble from the Community Music School of Springfield will perform, as will the Stomp Box Trio, fronted by renowned jazz vocalist Evelyn Harris of Northampton. Wrapping up the evening will be a New Orleans all-star get-down with Charmaine Neville, Khalif Neville, and the Glenn David Andrews Band. Pop-up performances and collaborations between artists will take place on a smaller stage in between acts. The committee was really committed to leveling up this year, Holden said. The festival has grown steadily, and they have a very dedicated team. Saturday's Falls Fest will be a day for the visual arts as well. A large-scale digital art installation by E-Ink an electronic paper display technology company, will grace the 40-foot main stage. A light show, artisan market, dunk tank, archery area, and technology tent will all be offered at the festival. There will even be an instrument petting zoo for kids sponsored by Jerry's Music Shop in South Hadley. This year's festival will feature 9 musical acts and about 40 tents for different vendors and community groups. Food and beverage vendors will be kept to one area of the festival, but alcoholic beverages will be allowed in all parts of the park, Brzezinski said. Falls Fest will take place on July 28th at the Beach Grounds Park at 116 Main Street in South Hadley Falls. Admission is free, and festivities will take place beginning at noon and last until 10 p.m. Amherst BID to seek bandstand bids by Scott Meyersbach. Amherst. Concepts for a band shell that would become part of the town common will be solicited public beginning next month. After first pitching the idea of having the permanent structure on the town common a year ago, the Amherst Business Improvement District will put out a call for entries in the next few weeks, Executive Director Sarah LaCour said. LaCour said the idea of having a band shell on the common, which could be built in spring 2019, comes from the need to have a more formal place for performers in Amherst Center. The key impetus is everyone talks about Amherst needing a performance venue, LaCour said. A band shell is a type of bandstand shaped like a large concave shell with special acoustic properties. It is typically used for live performances. In addition to the current demand for a venue, 1874 plans by renowned landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted depict what he termed a music house in a location at the eastern edge of the common, next to Boltwood Avenue and across from the Lord Jeffrey Inn. The band shell would be available for at least 3 seasons, and because of the natural amphitheater formed by the shape of the common, the location would be ideal for various events featuring music, such as the Taste of Amherst. Previously, Kuhn-Riedel Architects created a design featuring an open shelter that would be expandable and would cost between $200,000 and $250,000 to build, but this plan is on hold. The contest is open to anyone, with the BID requesting that at least one member of any team have an architectural or design license. We would like the winning team to go right to construction drawings, LaCour said. The winning team could get a prize of $1,500. LaCour said the BID is putting together a 7-member jury to review entries that could include representatives from the BID, the Planning Board, the Design Review Board, the Historical Commission, and the Public Art Committee. Once the drawings are complete, sometime this fall, the BID would spend the winter doing permitting, as well as determining how much the structure would cost. The BID has some funding available and may seek private donations and Community Preservation Act funds. LaCour notes the timing for getting the band shell built would coincide with renovation of the North Common, the landscape in front of Town Hall, and improvements to the Main Street parking lot, both of which have been put off until 2019. Amherst nears deal to provide workers to Deerfield's water treatment plan by Scott Meyersbach. Amherst. Employees at Amherst water treatment plants could soon be working at the South Deerfield Water Supply District on a temporary basis. As a way to address inadequate staffing at one of the 2 water districts in the Franklin County town, the Amherst Select Board Monday voted 4-0 to authorize Town Manager Paul Brockelman to enter an interim intermunicipal agreement with officials in Deerfield. Brockelman said the arrangement can begin as soon as Town Attorney K.P. Law has reviewed its terms. The idea for assisting the nearby town came from Department of Public Works Superintendent Guilford Mooring, who noted that the water district is being scrutinized by the state's Department of Environmental Protection for having insufficient staffing. In the interim, they need a backup, Mooring said. The staffing there has been an ongoing problem, with several non-compliance findings in recent years, including not having a secondary operator from late 2015 to early 2016, failing to notify the agency about changing secondary operators twice in 2017 and early 2018, and failing to create and submit a completed staff and operations plan, according to a letter sent to Deerfield residents. Mooring said Amherst is offering its employees, when the South Deerfield Water District's workers are out on sick leave, vacation, or other previously scheduled time off. They don't see us as becoming the South Deerfield Water District people, Mooring said. The exact terms of the arrangement were not disclosed because of the continued review by KP Law, but a memo from Mooring to the Select Board stated that no costs will be borne by Amherst. The compensation that is proposed will offset Amherst personnel and material costs so as not to adversely affect the Amherst water rate payers, Mooring wrote. Select Board member Andrew Steinberg said his only concern about offering staffing would be if it impacted Amherst's water system. Mooring assured him this wouldn't happen. In addition to the staffing issues, the South Deerfield Water Supply District is under some type of investigation by the State Attorney General's office, though the exact nature of that has not been revealed. The other water supply district in Deerfield, the Deerfield Fire and Water District, for the northern part of town, is not part of the intermunicipal agreement with Amherst. Raptor Rehabilitator shares birds and stories with seniors, by Hannah Nelson. Northampton. Almost every seat in the room was taken Monday afternoon when Raptor Rehabilitator Tom Riccardi brought 7 of his birds to Christopher Heights of Northampton. "I'm glad we had such a good turnout," said Gail Malloy, who has been living at the assisted living facility since it opened in 2016. "We try to fill up the room for these kinds of events, but it doesn't always happen. This did it, though." Riccardi brought the birds out of their wooden crates, one by one, walking around the room with them atop his hand. The first 3 birds Riccardi brought out were owls, an eastern screech owl, a barred owl, and a Eurasian giant eagle owl. Garnering the most attention was the eagle owl, which Riccardi has raised from the egg. As he took him out of his wooden crate, the owl poked its beak up against Riccardi's face, clearly not trying to harm him. "He loves to play," Riccardi said. "I'll tell you this much, you guys haven't lived until you've been kissed by an owl." Another bird in the lineup was a peregrine falcon, the fastest creature on Earth, according to Riccardi, who said they can travel at speeds up to 200 miles an hour when they are hunting prey. Riccardi also pointed out the black lines under the falcon's eyes, which act as eye black and reflect the sun, just like Tom Brady with his eye black. The last bird Riccardi brought out was a 5-week-old turkey vulture with a face only a mother could love. Riccardi was called 4 weeks ago after someone in South Hadley realized that what they thought was a tennis ball was actually a young vulture that had fallen out of its nest. While the bird is currently in rehab and is unable to fly, Riccardi is expecting the turkey vulture to be able to fly in 2 weeks under his care. Last year, Riccardi took in 135 birds and was able to successfully release 60% of them into the wild. Others are kept at his Massachusetts Birds of Prey rehab facility in Conway because they are not fit to survive in the wild and are used in demonstrations. Diane Godek, Director of Activities at Christopher Heights, said she was pleased the seniors were able to learn about these birds from a local legend such as Riccardi. "It's really good for the seniors to experience nature," Godek said. "I'm glad it drew a great crowd." Senate and Attorney General spar over Rosenberg accusers, by the Associated Press and the Gazette. Boston. Massachusetts Senate President Harriet Chandler is pledging not to reveal the identities of individuals who gave information during the Senate's investigation into former Democratic Senate President Stan Rosenberg and his estranged husband, Brian Hefner. Chandler, also a Democrat, told reporters Monday the Senate granted confidentiality to those who aided the investigation. Chandler's comments came as attorney for the Senate has accused Democratic Attorney General Maura Healey of fishing for the identities. Healey's office filed a motion last month in Suffolk Superior Court seeking information gathered by the Boston law firm Hogan Lovells for the Senate ethics investigation into Rosenberg, including interviews with potential victims. Hefner is facing criminal charges of sexual assault, distributing nude photos without consent, and criminal lewdness. He has pleaded not guilty. Rosenberg resigned from the Senate in May after the release of an ethics report that found he failed to protect the Senate from Hefner. Rosenberg hasn't been criminally charged but is the subject, with Hefner, of a civil lawsuit. The June 15th lawsuit alleges that Rosenberg, 68, knew or was aware that Hefner, 31, posed a risk to individuals in the State House, and that Rosenberg and Hefner had an agreement or understanding allowing Hefner access to those individuals, with whom defendant Hefner could engage in unwanted sexual touching. The lawsuit alleges that Hefner grabbed the unnamed plaintiff's genitals without consent on 3 occasions in 2015 and 2016, and that the plaintiff suffers from ongoing emotional and physical distress from the incidents, including depression, anxiety, muscle tension, gastrointestinal distress, and impaired sleep. Attorneys for Rosenberg and Hefner have asked the court to reveal the accuser's identity.
You've just heard stories from the Daily Hampshire Gazette. Please stay tuned for more programming. Each day in America, nearly 10,000 people turn 65 years old. With a population of approximately 15 million, New England lays claim to the largest percentage of baby boomers in the country. Many of these individuals are living with acquired disabilities, though they may not readily identify as having a disability, and they may not realize that their rights are protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Since 1990, the ADA has supported a broad range of individuals to live full, meaningful lives in the community. New England ADA Center works closely with those with rights and those with responsibilities to implement the ADA. For more information, contact us today at newenglandada.org, a project of the Institute for Human-Centered Design.
Jill, why didn't you tell the class what you did this weekend?
Well, my dad and I went in search of some magical minnows and found a zillion of them in the stream from our lookout rock. Then my sister and I escaped from an evil slug king and went back to my super twig fort for safety. Then we told stories till it got dark, and the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Where were you, Jill?
We went to the forest. It's not that far away.
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You know that the ice cream scoop has the power to make a child smile, and that by slowing us down, the traffic light can keep us going. You know that the golf tee brings friends together, that the mailbox keeps them connected. You know that the cataract laser helps you look to the future, while the pacemaker ensures that there's a future to be seen. You know that the lawnmower, the clothes dryer, and the elevator make life easier, that the blood bank makes life possible. You know that these things we count on every day started as ideas. But did you know all these ideas came from the minds of African Americans? Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Please visit uncf.org or call 1-800-332-UNCF. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
This is volunteer reader David Brandt, broadcasting from Lowell, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Springfield Republican.
Hello, this is Kathleen, and today, Tuesday, July 24th, I'll be reading to you from the Republican. Springfield Casino opens in 1 month. MGM wraps up $960 million construction by Robert Risotto. With nearly $1 billion spent ahead of the MGM Springfield Casino grand opening, it's fair to say that MGM Resorts International has already rolled the dice on the city. And in exactly 1 month, the company will begin to play its hand to ensure a return on its investment. MGM Springfield has already hired more than 3,000 employees, and construction crews are finishing the interior details of the $960 million project. With progress continuing each day, the MGM Springfield's team is preparing for opening day, August 24th. The grand opening celebration is expected to draw tens of thousands of visitors to the city over the course of the opening weekend, as the public gets its first look into the state's first full-service casino. We're putting final touches on the restaurants and retail stores, and we're training hundreds of employees as to what it means to work for MGM when we say, "Welcome to the show," said Saviero Mancini, MGM Springfield's Director of Communications. We also have hundreds of employees here on the property who are in the middle of their on-site training. We have chefs and cooks practicing on the various menu items, and employees are testing the food and the procedures around the service. We are still walking around with hard hats, but it is a very exciting time. MGM Springfield will feature a 250-room hotel, new restaurants and places to get a drink, new places to shop, a dine-in luxury Regal Cinemas Theater, and a 3,400-spot parking garage right off the highway, which will be free of charge for anyone looking to come to downtown Springfield. Among the new places to grab a bite to eat are Cal Mare, an Italian restaurant spearheaded by award-winning celebrity chef Michael Mina, the Chandler Steakhouse, located in the former Union House Hotel on Main Street, which will be helmed by Hell's Kitchen Season 14 winner Megan Gill, the Tap Sports Bar, which will include a 10-lane bowling alley, an arcade, a beer garden, and feature Springfield-inspired foods. Wicked Noodles, a Pan-Asian restaurant. Jack's Lobster Shack, offering lobster rolls and New England-style clam chowder. Bill's Diner, described as an all-American eatery. The Hearth Grill, which is slated to offer healthier options. The South End Market, which will include a wine and cheese bar as well as a gelato and espresso counter. When our doors open, guests will find a resort that blurs the line between food and entertainment, and we can't wait for everyone to see what we've been working on, said MGM Springfield Vice President of Food and Beverage Anthony Caratozzolo. We set out to design a destination where guests will feel comfortable, return frequently, and be able to enjoy different amenities each time, from casual lunches to celebratory dinners. For those looking to gamble, gaming options will include a 125,000 square foot gaming floor with 2,550 slot machines, 120 gaming tables, a poker room, and a high-limit VIP gaming area. On Monday, the company launched a multimedia advertising campaign throughout the Northeast aimed at creating a buzz ahead of the grand opening. It featured scenes of the Springfield skyline with MGM-themed action, including the trademark lion, making its way across the Memorial Bridge. With this campaign, we are marking the grand arrival of an unparalleled experience from dining and entertainment to nightlife and gaming, said Michael Mathis, president of MGM Springfield. Each component is meant to capture the energy of the resort and showcase the wow moments guests will encounter throughout the destination. And throughout the 14.5-acre campus, there will be significant nods to the rich culture and history of Springfield and all of Western Massachusetts. The exterior of the property has facades and facade recreations of buildings that once stood there, thanks to the efforts of the Springfield Historical Commission under former Chairman Ralph Slate. The hotel rooms were designed to feature various aspects of Springfield's history, including historical building facades framing the windows, reclaimed wood tables in the garden and spa suites made from trees that once stood at what was once Bliss Street, and a chandelier made of vintage hats inspired by Dr. Seuss in the presidential suite. For Springfield Mayor Dominic Samo, the largest commercial development in the region's history nearing completion is indicative of a wave of successes he hopes to help the city build upon going forward. Like many urban centers in America, there has been a chip on our shoulders, he said. My administration has worked tirelessly to reinvent, redefine our city, to move away from what do you expect at Springfield to now, why not Springfield? We continue to accomplish this goal. I will continue to work hard to build on this momentum and harness this energy to spur not only more confidence and belief in our Springfield, but just as important, more business and neighborhood development investment too. It's an exciting time for our city, Sarno said. The project has been years and millions of dollars in the making back in 2011, after the legislator and then Governor Deval Patrick signed the Expanded Gaming Act, allowing for up to 3 casinos and a slots parlor in the Commonwealth. MGM Resorts International already had its sights set on Massachusetts, with MGM's first public pitch coming as a resort casino in Brimfield. The company soon shifted to focus its third largest city in the state as it competed with Mohegan Sun in Palmer, Hard Rock International in West Springfield, as well as Penn National Gaming and Ameristar in Springfield for the sole Western Massachusetts casino license. In 2012, Ameristar pulled out of the running, leaving only MGM and Penn National to compete. Ameristar had already spent millions clearing much of the former Westinghouse Electric site off of Interstate 391, paving the way for the CRRC rail car factory, which created around 60 new jobs and is still growing. Votes on the host community agreements in Palmer and West Springfield both failed, prompting the exit of the respective interested casino companies from the region, and Penn National eventually landed the license to build the Plain Ridge Park Casino Slots Parlor in Plainville. MGM inked a lucrative host community agreement with Springfield, which city voters approved 58% to 42% on July 16, 2013. It seemed like full steam ahead until a 2014 ballot question that would have repealed the expanded gaming law. But that vote went in favor of the casino companies, allowing for MGM Springfield to begin construction. In 1 month, the hurdles MGM faced to bring the project to fruition will fade into the city's history as it hooves of the Budweiser Clydesdale horses make their way down Main Street for the grand opening parade. And what happens after that will be up to the patrons who pass through the company's doors, the public, the economy, and of course, the chance. Finding a place of their own. Puerto Rican evacuees find apartments 10 months after the storm, by Elizabeth Roman and Shannon Young, from The Republican, West Springfield. For the past few weeks, Aixa Diaz and her 2 small children have taken the bus from their hotel in West Springfield to their new apartment on St. James Avenue in Springfield, trying to bring a few things every day. It's hard to move things on the bus, said Diaz, who has been living in the hotel since December, when she fled Puerto Rico due to the continuing effects of Hurricane Maria. Diaz is one of many hurricane evacuees who are finally getting apartments after months of living in a cramped hotel room with no access to kitchens, privacy, or peace of mind. It is a relief. I can't wait to have my own space and set up a proper room for my children, she said while sitting with her 2-year-old daughter and 9-month-old son in her hotel room. With families like Diaz's facing uncertainty over future federal emergency management agency shelter support, something advocates are challenging in federal court, local organizations and housing authorities are working to connect hurricane evacuees with longer-term housing. The Springfield Housing Authority received 333 applications from Puerto Rican evacuees seeking public housing. As of late July, it had placed 18 elderly applicants and 19 families, said Nicole Contoy, the agency's acting executive. It's challenging because we have a very limited vacancies, she said in an interview. I would say out of all our public housing units, the city, we have maybe 3% available to place people. Contoy said the agency has thousands of applicants on the wait list for public housing and Section 8 vouchers. Puerto Rican evacuees' requests are being processed as emergency applications, giving them priority over others. Organizations like Catholic Charities are also helping hurricane evacuees find stable housing by offering to pay a portion of their rent for a full year while they seek employment. Jorge Santiago, whose family is set to move into an apartment on Cabot Street in Holyoke next week, said Catholic Charities funding has been a blessing. Santiago arrived in western Massachusetts with his wife and 2 children in December and spent months looking for a long-term housing. It is a sense of relief to be able to have a proper place for my children to rest each night, he said. My wife will finally be able to cook them a healthy meal that are not made in a microwave. Like Diaz, Santiago's family relies on public transportation to get around, making it difficult to move their belongings and find furniture. Santiago and Diaz are among the 288 evacuee households who remained living in Massachusetts hotel rooms through FEMA's Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, or state support, as of July 19th, down from the 320 state officials reported earlier in the month. More than 1,000 families, meanwhile, were checked into hotels participating in FEMA's shelter program across 26 states and Puerto Rico as of this week, 10 months after Hurricane Maria ravaged Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. With a recent court ruling guaranteeing evacuees FEMA support only through August 6th, hurricane survivors have turned to housing authorities across Massachusetts for long-term shelter solutions. Worcester Housing Authority Executive Director Alex Corrales said his agency has already placed 90 families in public housing and 100 more through Section 8 vouchers. We were the first housing authority in the Commonwealth to start housing hurricane victims back in October, he said, noting that hurricane evacuees' applications were placed on a priority list for victims of natural disasters. North Central Massachusetts Housing Authority's Executive Director Peter Prowl, meanwhile, said his agency has approved dozens of emergency applications from Hurricane Maria survivors. The Leominster Housing Authority has placed or is in the process of housing 17 of those applicants, while the Fitchburg Housing Authority has placed or is in the process of housing 31 of those applications, Prowl said. He noted that his agency did not receive any emergency applications from hurricane victims in the month of June. West Springfield Housing Authority Executive Director Kirk Jasko said the state directed his agency to give hurricane evacuees priority in housing placements, something he said that upset other applicants. Some of the people that have been on the list for years that were number 1 when the evacuees came in, they may have dropped to number 40. Some people don't think that that's fair that evacuees take priority since they've been already waiting 5 years. There is a lot of complaining about that, he said. Jasko said West Springfield Housing Authority has already placed 7 Puerto Rico hurricane evacuee applicants in state-supported units, include 2 who have already moved into other housing. Another 24 or so hurricane evacuee applicants, he said, remain on the agency's wait lists, which contain approximately 800 applicants for just a handful of openings each year. With the West Springfield Housing Authority overseeing 90 family units and 240 for elderly and disabled individuals, Jasko said it could be years before all of the hurricane evacuee applicants are placed in apartments, let alone others on the wait lists. The waiting list to get into housing is anywhere from approximately 1 to 3 years on an emergency basis. Right now we have 43 emergencies. The biggest problem that we face right now is there's not enough adequate public housing, he said. Springfield, job seekers invited to weekly sessions by Peter Goonan. MGM Springfield is boosting its Job Talk Tuesday program by moving it to Cambridge College in Tower Square with a live in-person question and answer format. The new format will begin today and continue for the next month, MGM Springfield said in a press release. The change occurs as MGM's Resort Casino plans for an August 24th opening, and hiring efforts continue. Job Talk Tuesday has been a weekly MGM Springfield Facebook Live Q&A session in which MGM Springfield workforce development representatives answer questions as they are posted on MGM's Facebook page. At Cambridge College, the program moves from Facebook Live to an in-person Q&A session to discuss ongoing employment opportunities at MGM Springfield. MGM is in the process of hiring 3,000 full-time, part-time, and on-call employees, with mostly full-time positions being offered. At MGM, we never stop hiring and looking for exceptional local talent, said Wanda Gispert, Regional Vice President of Talent and Workforce Development. Our local partnerships have been key to our hiring success. We are well on our way to exceeding many workforce goals that were set for MGM Springfield, but to keep pace and support a 24-hour, 365-day resort, we cannot slow things down now. The program is also geared to provide information about Cambridge College and its course offerings, including evening, weekend, and online class schedules, MGM said. There is no registration requirement for Job Talk Tuesday. Representatives will be available Tuesdays through August 28th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Attendees are encouraged to bring resumes. Mayor, Council differ over tax break rules by Peter Goonan, Springfield. Mayor Dominic J. Sarno has vetoed an ordinance recently passed by the City Council to add new requirements for businesses that apply for and receive property tax incentives. Sarno said that after conferring with his top legal and economic development advisors, he believes the amended ordinance could expose the city to undue risk of liability and damages and could hinder the city's economic development efforts. The council could seek to override the mayor's veto at a future meeting, needing at least 9 votes to succeed. The ordinance passed an 8-0 on July 16th. The lead sponsor, Council President Orlando Ramos, said he will schedule a veto override vote as soon as possible. I am struggling to find any reason any reasonable person would find to oppose this piece of legislation, Ramos said. It is pretty straightforward. All this does is ensure that if a company and or developer receiving a TIF, a tax increment financing, is following existing federal, state, and local legislation. Councilors have said that any business benefiting from a tax incentives at a cost to the taxpayers should be held to fair wage and employment laws as a condition of that funding. The changes approved by the council included that any contractor or subcontractor involved in the construction business project must not have been debarred or suspended from performing construction work by any federal, state, or local government entity in the past 5 years, and must not have been found in violation of any law in the past 5 years related to employer payroll taxes, employee income tax withholding, wage and hour laws, prompt payment laws, prevailing wage laws, or compensation insurance coverage. The ordinance states that the city should pursue revocation of the tax incentive in cases of non-compliance with new requirements. Sarno said he conferred with City Solicitor Edward Pikula, who advised him on the enactment of the ordinance exposes the city to undue liability and damages. Pikula said the ordinance is not in proper form, as it requires private projects to comply with certain prevailing wage provisions. Enforcement could be a violation of constitutional or statutory provisions that could expose the city to liability, Pikula said. Sano said he also conferred with the city's Chief Development Officer, Kevin Kennedy, and with the Board of Assessors under Chairman Richard Allen, and is concerned that the ordinance could slow and or hinder our continued economic development progress. Sano said he is open to considering any proposed amendments that could mitigate his concerns. Representatives of various labor unions, union employees, and city councilors had praised the new requirements, saying that contractors gaining taxpayer dollars should be held accountable for fair labor laws. Councilor Melvin Edwards, one of the supporters, says he wants additional details on the reasons for the veto, but said the changes were supported by councilors as the right thing to do. In support of fair labor laws, TIF agreements involve taxpayer dollars, and council looked at the public good in adding requirements, he said. Western Mass Task Force targets scofflaw boaters on Connecticut River by Mary C. Cerez, a special to the Republican. A new coalition of law enforcement agencies plans to crack down on illegal activity on and near the Connecticut River and provide helpful education to boaters. The Connecticut River Task Force will enforce watercraft laws, prevent trespassing and littering on islands and beaches, ensure that parking rules are followed, and deter general criminal activity, according to a press release. Participating are police departments from East Hampton, Hadley, Northampton, and South Hadley, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Massachusetts Environmental Police, and the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation. Environmental police now dock their boats at the Oxbow Marina in Northampton, and the Coast Guard will have a renewed presence from that site, said the U.S. Coast Guard Ensign Tyre McNeese said in a phone interview. The federal agency has jurisdiction on the Connecticut River because it passes through multiple states, he said. We really want to focus on the education and being safe on the waters, said McNeese. We're encouraging people to sign up for boater education classes. That's the best way to learn about navigation laws and safety requirements. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary offers such classes and will conduct a free check of anyone's watercraft to make sure that it is compliant, he said. Also, state law requires that any motorized boat operated on a public waterway, including jet skis, must be registered. Under state laws, it is illegal to operate a boat while under the influence of alcohol. Motorboats must stay 150 feet from any swimming area, and while specific restrictions apply on inland waters, operating faster than 45 miles per hour is considered negligent operation, according to state guidelines. The Connecticut River boasts a large recreational presence of motor vessels, paddlecraft, water sports, campers, and anglers alike. The Joint Task Force announcement reads, "Safety should be a priority for everyone operating on the water." The coalition says it plans to ensure residents and visitors are able to enjoy land and maritime activities in the Connecticut River Valley in a safe, responsible manner. Amherst. More LGBT people filing discrimination complaints. UMass researchers cite an increased access to justice. By Diane Lederman. More gay, lesbian, and transgender people are finding protection with the 2013 extension of federal anti-discrimination coverage to sexual orientation and gender identity, particularly in states that do not have similar laws. Researchers with the University of Massachusetts Amherst Center for Employment Equity reported on these findings for the recently released Evidence from the Frontlines on Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Discrimination. Co-authors M. V. Lee Badgett, Amanda Brommel, and Stephen Boucher examined data from more than 9,100 discrimination charges filed with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and state agencies between 2013 and 2016. 21 states and the District of Columbia currently ban all sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination. Wisconsin bans discrimination based on sexual orientation. 24 other states have at least one city or county that offers some form of protection. But for residents without local or state-based protection, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission provides the only available recourse for those facing sexual orientation or gender identity discrimination, according to the report. Badgett believes that with the 2013 changes, people felt more comfortable filing complaints. She also thinks the numbers in states without protections are underreported, about 23% lower than the states with protections. Badgett, a UMass economics professor, said the research is important to show that the expanded protections are helping. We have some patchy laws and policy, and some states don't have protection, she said. She said the ability to file with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is really access to justice, and the report shows that even people in states without laws are afforded federal protection. We hope it's useful to show the need to have a policy that does cover everybody in the country, she said. While charges were filed by people in all demographics, she was surprised to see that 43% of those filing charges were African Americans when they account for just 12% of the U.S. labor force. It was very surprising. For a lot of reasons, people have the image that the LGBT people are mostly white people. When you have so many people of color, there might be something very complicated going on with having more than one identity that could be discriminated against. Among other findings, more than 40% of complaints come from a small number of industries, some of which pay low wages relative to the economy as a whole: retail, accommodations and food services, and administration, waste management, and remediation services. About 54% of the complaints were filed because of discharge, with 47% filed because of alleged harassment, according to the report. Badgett said this is just the beginning of the reporting. The researchers are looking at more details, such as the kind of jobs where people are more discriminated against. Were there more charges in male-dominated jobs, for example, she said? Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You've just heard news stories from the Springfield Republican. Please stay tuned for more programming. This announcement brought to you from PAC TV.
The Plymouth Public Library's Outreach and Senior Services Department provides services and collections of interest to older adults, such as large print fiction and nonfiction books, as well as audiobooks. Outreach also provides services to individuals who would otherwise not have access to library materials, such as people who are homebound, institutionalized, or who have a physical or mental disability. Outreach services include books by mail, deposit collections of regular and large print books, educational and recreational programs, recorded books, and reference assistance. Currently, 4 local nursing facilities partake in the deposit collection program, which brings the library to the residents by fulfilling specific requests, in addition to a variety of fiction and nonfiction titles each month. The large print collection includes New York Times bestsellers, inspirational reads, local interest and nonfiction, mysteries, romance, and biographies. With a collection of over 2,000 audiobooks, patrons with limited sight or who are visually impaired can enjoy reading again. For more details and information on any of the library's outreach services, call Tom Kaminsky at 508-830-4250. Again, that's Tom Kaminsky at 508-830-4250.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
This is volunteer reader Jim Gurnell, broadcasting from Worcester, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Worcester Telegram and Gazette.
Hello, this is Irene at TIC, and I'll be reading the Telegram and Gazette from Worcester. This is today's issue. The first story is Horse Racing Group to Pitch Plan in Lancaster. Santa Anita Pimlico owner looking to site thoroughbred racetrack by Craig S. Seaman. Lancaster. A major player in the thoroughbred horse racing industry is eyeing Lancaster for a thoroughbred racetrack. The Stronach Group was scheduled Wednesday to give the Lancaster Planning Board a presentation for a proposed thoroughbred racetrack in North Lancaster, but the meeting has been postponed. However, Lancaster Town Administrator Orlando Pacheco said he expects the Stronach Group to give the town a preliminary site plan, possibly as early as Wednesday. As soon as the town gets the plan, Mr. Pacheco said, it will be made available to the public. We don't have anything concrete yet, Mr. Pacheco said. The Stronach Group, which is the major player in thoroughbred racing in North America, reached out to us and let us know that they have a desire and they are looking to exercise options on the property. According to its corporate website, the Stronach Group is one of the world's leading horse racetrack operators and suppliers of wagering technology. The group's headquarters is in Aurora, Ontario. In addition, the Stronach Group is a leading producer and distributor of televised horse racing programming and one of the world's leading thoroughbred race horse breeders, having produced numerous Triple Crown and Breeders' Cup champion. The website states, Stronach racetracks include Santa Anita Park in California, Pimlico Race Course, home of the Preakness Stakes in Maryland, and the Gulfstream Park in Florida. The next story is also from the front page, early voting precincts identified in Worcester. Residents can cast ballots at any of the 5 locations, regardless of where they live in the city, by Nick Kotsopoulos. Worcester. 5 locations have been chosen by the Election Commission as early voting polling places for the November 6th state election. They are Unitarian Universalist Church, 90 Holden Street, early voting precinct 1, Worcester Senior Center at 128 Providence Street, early voting precinct 2, Worcester Public Library, 3 Salem Street, early voting precinct 3, Shaw's Supermarket, 68 Stafford Street, early voting precinct 4, and Worcester State University, former Temple Emmanuel Building, 280 May Street, early voting precinct 5. Early voting will be held over a 12-day period from October 22nd through November 2nd. Voters can cast ballots at any of the early voting precincts regardless of where they live in the city. On weekdays, early voting will rotate among the 5 polling locations. On the weekend of October 27-28, early voting will be held at 2 polling places each day. The Election Commission will hold a total of 14 early voting sessions leading up to the state election. The weekday early voting sessions will run from 8:45 a.m. to 7 p.m., while on the weekend they will run from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The early voting schedule that has been approved by the Election Commission is as follows: October 22nd, Unitarian Universalist Church; October 23, Worcester Senior Center; October 24, Worcester Public Library; October 25, Shaw's Supermarket; and October 26, Worcester State University. On the weekend, the early voting sessions will be held at Unitarian Universalist Church and Shaw's Supermarket on October 27, and at Worcester Senior Center and Worcester State University on October 28. The weekday schedule for the following week will be October 29, Unitarian Universalist Church; October 30, Worcester Senior Center; October 31st, Worcester Public Library; and November 1st, Shaw's Supermarket. November 2nd, Worcester State University. Early ballots cannot be counted until Election Day. Early voting is intended to cut down on the lines at polling sites on Election Day and make it easier for people to participate in the electoral process. The cost to implement the early voting plan for the state election has been estimated at about $50,890. Election commissioners felt it was important to have early voting at various locations throughout the city rather than at just a single site, and to have at least 2 early voting sites on both weekend days. Early voting only applies to biennial state elections and can be done in person or by mail. Those who vote early in person use the same voting equipment that is used on Election Day. 2 years ago, roughly 15%, or 16,000 of the people who voted in Worcester in the state and presidential election did so during the early voting period. Overall, turnout for that election, 65,595 voters, 62.8%, was higher than the previous presidential election, when 61,975 voters, or 59.46%, turned out. Local election officials are hoping that early voting will encourage more people to vote in this year's state election. The last time a state election was held that did not include a presidential race was in 2014, when 35.89% of registered voters voted. Another story from the front page. The title is Schools Eye Facial Recognition Technology to Boost Security by Carolyn Thompson of the Associated Press. Lockport, New York. The surveillance system that has kept watch on students entering Lockport schools for over a decade is getting a novel upgrade. Facial recognition technology soon will check each face against a database of expelled students, sex offenders, and other possible troublemakers. It could be the start of a trend as more schools fearful of shootings consider adopting the technology, which has been gaining ground on city streets and in some businesses and government agencies. Just last week, Seattle-based digital software company Real Networks began offering a free version of its facial recognition system to schools nationwide. Already, the Lockport City School District plan has opened a debate in this Western New York community and far beyond about the system's potential effectiveness, student privacy, and civil rights. We shake our heads that we're having to deal with and talk about these kinds of security issues, said Robert Lipuma, Technology Director for the Lockport District, east of Niagara Falls. But here we are. The idea behind the Lockport system is to enable security officers to quickly respond to the appearance of expelled students, disgruntled employees, sex offenders, or certain weapons the system is programmed to detect. Only students seen as threats will be loaded into the database. Officials say it is the first school district in the country to adopt the Canadian-made system it is installing. Administrators say it could thwart shootings like February's attack, in which expelled student Nicholas Cruz is charged with killing 17 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. This would have identified Cruz as not being able to be in that building, said Tony Olivo, a security consultant who recommended the system for Lockport. Cameras mounted throughout the building would have followed the banned student's every move until he left. Critics say the technology has been absent from schools for good reason. In the light of Lockport's plans, the New York Civil Liberties Union asked the state education department to block the technology from any New York school, saying it would have a chilling effect on school climate. Education officials say they are reviewing the request. Lockport is sending the message that it views students as potential criminals who must have their faces scanned wherever they go, NYCLU Executive Director Donna Lieberman said. Jennifer Lynch, senior staff attorney with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital rights group, said any school considering facial recognition must consider who will have access to data, how much a system would be managed, and whether students can opt out. Others questioned the technology's cost and effectiveness, given reports like one released in February by MIT and Stanford University that found some facial recognition programs don't work as well on racial minorities and women. Lockport parent Belinda Cooper would have preferred metal detectors in her 15-year-old daughter's school. It would have been cheaper for the school district, and you can guarantee no guns or knives will be brought in, she said. District officials say the Aegis system they are installing, made by SN Technologies of Ontario, will not build or store a database of student and faculty face prints that could be shared with the government or marketers. Nor will the $1.4 million cost, funded through a state technology bond, siphon funding from staffing or supplies. District officials acknowledge it won't stop a determined attacker from coming through the door, nor will it warn against someone who is not a known threat. But there's no system that's going to solve every problem, Lipuma said. It's another tool that we feel can give us an advantage to help make our buildings and our communities a little safer. Individual schools and districts, as well as the governors of Wyoming and one other state, have already expressed interest in Real Network's customizable SAFR system, Senior Product Director Michael Vance said. At the University Child Development School in Seattle, where it was piloted, rather than rely on office staff buzzing and late arrivals or visitors, the system gives parents who have registered their faces automatic access through a locked gate and tells the office who is coming. Schools can opt to register students' faces and customize how to respond to people who have been flagged for alert. All of that resides with the school, Vance said. We don't see it. We don't have access to the pictures, the images, the video, anything like that. It's stored in the same way that school attendance, databases, grades, records, everything is kept. Nevertheless, citing a patchwork of regulations, Vance said the company would welcome the kind of government guidelines for facial recognition technology that Microsoft President Brad Smith called for in a blog post July 13. In Lockport, as crews worked on wiring the system inside, 16-year-old student Talia Sumier expressed some reservations. "I feel like it's too personal," she said. "Cameras all in my face, it's too much." Kari Demos, 22, who has two siblings in Lockport High School, said he worries for their safety and views facial recognition as another piece of a security puzzle that includes locked doors and active shooter drills. "It'll actually identify who should and shouldn't be in the school," said Demos, who graduated from the school in 2013. "The system will never be 100% perfect, but it's a step in the right direction." The last story from the front page is Trump's bid to toss TPS case denied by Alana Durkin-Richer of the Associated Press. Boston. A federal judge on Monday denied the Trump administration's bid to throw out a lawsuit that alleges its decision to end special protections shielding Haitian, Salvadoran, and Honduran immigrants from deportation was racially motivated. U.S. District Judge Denise Casper's ruling means the case that seeks to block the administration from terminating temporary protected status for thousands of immigrants from those three countries can move forward. She also rejected the administration's request to remove Republican President Donald Trump as a defendant in the case. This represents an extremely favorable outcome for the Honduran, Haitian, and Salvadoran immigrants who have felt completely blindsided by the federal government's refusal to maintain this humanitarian protection program and who are firmly convinced that racism and discrimination were at the heart of the decision to terminate TPS, said Ivan Espinoza Madrigal. He's executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Economic Justice, which filed a lawsuit in February. Casper denied one of the group's requests for relief, but allowed all other claims to move forward, saying the immigrants have made plausible constitutional claims. This court finds that the combination of a disparate impact on particular racial groups, statements of animus by people plausibly alleged to be involved in the decision-making process, and an allegedly unreasoned shift in policy sufficient to allege plausibly that a discriminatory purpose was a motivating factor in a decision, Casper wrote. The Department of Justice didn't immediately respond to an email seeking comment. Last month, a federal judge in San Francisco refused to throw out a similar lawsuit, challenging the administration's decision to end the protections for immigrants from El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Sudan. Temporary protected status provides safe havens for people from countries experiencing armed conflicts, natural disasters, and other challenges. The program has been continuously extended for Haitians since the 2010 earthquake. Protections for El Salvadorans have been in place since earthquakes devastated the country in 2001. For Hondurans, the program known as TPS has been in place since 1999 after Hurricane Mitch devastated the Central American nation the year before. The Trump administration argues that conditions in the countries have improved and that the program was not designed for the protections to be continuously extended. In the local news section, the first item is OFO Bike Share Taking Its Wheels Out of Worcester by Stephen H. Foskett, Jr. of the Telegram Gazette staff. Worcester. OFO, the dockless bike share giant that populated city streets last year with its bright yellow rental bicycles, confirmed Monday it is shutting down operations here. Jordan Levine, Northeast Communications Director for the company, confirmed the company is leaving Worcester, but did not offer further details on the process. He provided the following statement from Andrew Daly, OFO's head of North American operations. As we continue to bring bike share to communities across the globe, OFO has begun to prioritize operations in a number of successful markets, allowing us to continue to serve our customers at the high level of quality they have come to expect. In September of 2017, the Chinese dockless bike share giant chose Worcester as its second U.S. launch location after Seattle. OFO quickly set up shop in cities across the USA. For around $1 an hour, riders could download the OFO app on their phone, scan a bike's lock with a QR code reader, and be on their way. At its peak, the company said it had around 400 bikes on Worcester streets. Unlike docked bike share systems in larger cities like Boston and New York, riders simply park the bikes at their destination and leave them for the next user. Employees then rebalance the bikes so they are available where people want them. There were hiccups, and local social media channels often featured pictures of broken and improperly parked bikes. The company relaunched this spring in Worcester, noting that last year in the city, OFO bikes were taken on an average of 2,460 rides per week by an average of 1,263 riders. The company said that the vast majority of trips were within 3 miles of downtown, including Union Station, which the company saw as validation of its mission of providing first and last mile trips to connect with other forms of transit. OFO's withdrawal from Worcester is reportedly part of a larger downsizing in the state and across the U.S. Forbes reported last week that OFO laid off the majority of its U.S. staff. The Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce worked with OFO on its launch in the city last year, and Karen Pelletier, the Chamber's Vice President of Operations and Director of Education and Workforce Development, said Monday the Chamber believes dockless bike share is still a worthwhile endeavor here. She said she hopes another dockless bike share company will soon fill the void left by OFO. Ms. Pelletier said the program was well received in the city last year. She said people used the bikes for transportation and just for fun. She said dockless bike share helps fill gaps in the city's public transportation system. Docked bike share systems wouldn't be a good fit in Worcester, she added. The dockless system doesn't require any public infrastructure investment, and the city is so spread out. A dockless system makes more sense and offers access for a variety of people in the city, including low-income customers, she said. The next article is Sutton Selectman Resigns After DUI Charge by Susan Spencer of the Telegram and Gazette staff. Sutton. Selectman Michael Kenny resigned his seat Thursday after reports of his arraignment in Bennington, Vermont, Superior Court on drunken driving charges. Mr. Kenny wrote in an email Thursday to Town Administrator James A. Smith, "As we spoke on the phone due to personal reasons, effective immediately, I have resigned my seat on the Board of Selectmen." Mr. Kenny pleaded not guilty, July 16, to charges of driving under the influence of alcohol, third or subsequent offense, and refusing to take a test for driving under the influence after having previous convictions. According to Massachusetts court records, Mr. Kenny was found guilty of drunken driving in Webster in 1998 and in Grafton in 1999. He was found not guilty after a jury trial for a third drunken driving charge, which occurred in 2009 in Millbury. Vermont State Police Trooper Raymond Witkowski reported in his affidavit to the court that Mr. Kenny was allegedly so drunk when he drove a white Mazda Miata into the parking area of a Cumberland Farms gas and convenience store in Bennington in the early hours of June 20 that he stumbled out of the car and had to hold on to the car to pull himself up and steady his balance. He also hurled obscenities at police and allegedly threatened them with violence, including threatening to shoot them if they ever came into Massachusetts. The next story is Rutland woman charged in stabbing by Kim Ring of the Telegram-Gazette staff, East Brookfield. A Rutland woman who was free on bail after being charged with stabbing her boyfriend in May was back in court Monday after she allegedly stabbed the man with a steak knife Saturday night. Annette M. Guinan, 54, of 142 Glenwood Road, Rutland, was charged with assault with intent to kill and assault and battery on a household member after she allegedly attacked her 51-year-old boyfriend just before 7 p.m. Sunday at her Rutland address. The victim ran to a neighbor's house and told a woman there that she was trying to kill me, court documents state. The neighbor said the victim was bleeding from his back near his shoulder and blood was running down his arm. The victim allegedly said he was reluctant to get police involved, but was eventually convinced, and the neighbor dialed 911. Ms. Guinan allegedly told police that she stabbed her boyfriend and that she'd thrown down a bottle of his whiskey. Police wrote that they found a bloody bottle of Yukon Jack when they were looking for the knife used to stab the victim. The victim was taken by ambulance with what police termed a non-life-threatening laceration. In Western Worcester District Court on Monday, Ms. Guinan's bail in the original case was revoked, and bail in the new case was set at $250 by Judge Maura McCarthy. She was ordered not to abuse the victim, to refrain from consuming alcohol, and submit to alcohol testing. She is due back in court August 21st. The next story is Hale, selected to lead Ecotarium by Craig Seaman. Worcester. After a 7-month search, Lucy Hale has been chosen as the next president of the Ecotarium. She will succeed Joseph P. Cox, who stepped down from the post earlier this year. A search committee chose Ms. Hale based on her breadth of experience as a nonprofit leader in the science, nature, and wildlife fields, having assumed progressively more leadership responsibility at the Dallas Zoo and Children's Aquarium at Fair Park, Perot Museum of Nature and Science, and most recently as executive director of Trinity River Audubon Center in Dallas, Texas, the Ecotarium said in an announcement Monday. I am honored to be part of this vibrant and historic institution, Ms. Hale said in the announcement. It is thrilling to join this institution at an important time for education in the Worcester community. Ms. Hale will join the Ecotarium on August 20. That concludes today's Telegram and Gazette from Worcester. This is Irene at TIC, and I thank you for listening.
You've just heard news stories from the Worcester Telegram and Gazette. Please stay tuned for more programming.
Coming soon from the Talking Information Center, join reader Jack Garrity as he presents the book, The Unnatural World, The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age by David Biello. With the historical perspective of The Song of the Dodo and the urgency of Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, The Unnatural World chronicles a disparate band of unlikely heroes. These scientists, billionaires, and ordinary people are all working towards saving the best home humanity is ever likely to have. What is the threat? It is us. In a time when a species dies out every 10 minutes, when summers are getting hotter, winters colder, and oceans higher, some people still deny mankind's effect on the earth. A futurist ray of hope amid the usual denial and despair, As said by Esquire, the unnatural world examines the world we have created and analyzes the glimmers of light emerging from the efforts of incredible individuals seeking to change our future. Instead of a world without us, this history of the future shows how to become good gardeners, helping people thrive along with an abundance of plants, animals, all the exuberant profusion of life on Earth, a better world with us. The current era of humans need not be the end of the world, and according to Scientific American, Bielo describes what we have done to alter our planet and what we should do in the future. The Unnatural World, The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age by David Bielo will air on the Select Mix Book Hour beginning July 30th and ending August 20th.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
Hi, this is Volunteer Judith, broadcasting from Marshfield, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Lowell Sun.
Thank you for tuning in to the Talking Information Center Network. I'm Laura Kerrigan. Today we're reading the Tuesday, July 24th issue of the Lowell Sun. Our first headline, Protest Planned Over UMass Tuition Increase, written by Michael P. Norton. Our dateline is Boston. The decision this month by the University of Massachusetts to raise tuition by 2.5% will come under fire during a protest outside the State House at noon on Wednesday. Officials from three related groups, the Hildreth Institute, La Vida Scholars, and Inversant, plan to stand with students and alumni to call attention to recent tuition increases at UMass. Organizers say the increases, as well as an insufficient level of state aid to public higher education, are contributing to the widespread belief, as reflected in public opinion polls, that financial hurdles are too high for many people who want to access higher education. The Hildreth Institute, a nonprofit established to pull the curtain back on the unsustainable higher education system in America, the direct result of a flawed financial aid system, said Massachusetts is 36 in the nation in per capita higher education spending. A Hildreth official said 30 or 40 people plan to protest on Wednesday. In a July 13 statement, after the UMass board approved the tuition hike, trustees chairman Rob Manning said, "The board takes the impact of any tuition increase on students and their families very seriously. This is a moderate increase that will ensure UMass continues to deliver a world-class education at an affordable cost." According to UMass, its tuition increases have averaged 2.8% annually since the 2015-2016 annual academic year. Our next headline, Chelmsford town manager presses for and gets hefty pay hike. Written by Alana Melanson. Our dateline is Chelmsford. Selectmen awarded town manager Paul Cohen a significant salary increase late Monday following a stellar annual performance review. Cohen is now making $192,000, up from $168,008 last fiscal year. That marks a 14% increase. Selectmen unanimously ranked both Cohen and town accountant Darlene Lucier's performance as exceptional, the highest of 5 possible rankings. Selectmen went into executive session to determine salary increases for both Cohen and Lucier, but initially did not involve them in negotiations. When they emerged from executive session, they announced they would set Cohen's salary at $181,000. Cohen seemed speechless at first, but regained his composure and argued that he deserved a higher salary as the area's longest-serving manager at nearly 12 years, paired with consistent high performance. Cohen said he discussed with the board last year that he was compensated less than his peers. He referenced an analysis done by the board that showed the midpoint compensation for comparable communities in fiscal 2018 was about $192,000, which he said has gone up about $196,000 in fiscal 2019. If he were to leave Chelmsford, Cohen said, the town would have to advertise for a new manager with a much higher salary, and he did not feel that was fair given his record in the community. Selectman Emily Antool said she preferred to pay Cohen the standard rate, but others on the board decided they want to bring him up to it over a couple of years rather than all at once. Cohen said $181,000 would leave him $15,000 below the midpoint. And I'm told, wait another year and maybe the board at that time will compensate you. As members of this board know, there have been opportunities that would have compensated me greater than I've foregone, he said. There are people who are coming into a first manager position in communities smaller than Chelmsford that are getting more benefits and compensation than I am receiving. With the public vote on Cohen's salary not yet taken, the board decided to go back into executive session, this time with Cohen, at 11:37 p.m. They did not re-emerge until 12:04 a.m. when they publicly voted the $192,000 salary figure. Selectmen also gave Lucier a step increase, raising her salary from $105,000 to just under $108,000. In other business, selectmen unanimously approved a common victualler and entertainment license for KJ's Cafe, a new coffee and sandwich shop expected to open at 118 Chelmsford Street in September. The shop will inhabit part of the storefront previously occupied by Chelmsford Premium Meats. A Class II auto dealer public hearing for Capital Motor Group at 154 Middlesex Street was rescheduled to August 13th. Our next headline, New Chapter for a Beloved Place of Faith. Plan calls for restoration and park at Lowell Grotto by Robert Mills. Our dateline is Lowell. It didn't take long after heavy equipment moved into the area of the Lady of Lourdes Grotto at the former Franco-American School for the anxious phone calls to start coming in. Are the grotto and the Stations of the Cross being destroyed or moved? The answer is a definite no. In fact, a group is working on plans to restore the grotto and Stations of the Cross, improve public access to the site, and preserve it in perpetuity. The site will be subdivided into its own property and donated to a nonprofit group that will be formed to raise money, construct, and then maintain the area as a public park. It's going to be a place for everyone to enjoy, said Brian McGowan, whose company, TMI Property Management and Development, bought the property last year in partnership with the Coalition for a Better Acre. The group overseeing the project, informally known as the Franco-American Grotto Restoration Committee, will soon be setting up a website and start a fundraising drive to bring the project to fruition. The grotto, a scale replica of the Lady of Lourdes Grotto in France, was built in 1911 when the property was home to an orphanage run by the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa in the historic Frederick Eyre Mansion. The 14 Stations of the Cross nearby were brought here from France in 1912, and in the century since, both have become a popular pilgrimage site for everyone from ordinary Lowellians to celebrities like Jack Kerouac, Jackie Onassis Kennedy, and Bob Dylan. A book inside the grotto has for years contained the unsigned prayers of visitors who are struggling. The property became the Franco-American School after the orphanage closed. But when the school closed in 2017, the entire property was bought by a partnership of TMI and the CBA. McGowan said one of the reasons the school board of directors selected the partnership over more deep-pocketed investors was a promise the partnership made to maintain the grotto and the Station of the Cross. We're keeping that promise, said CBA President Dave Willett, who spent more than a year living on the property back when it was an orphanage. Willett, just then 6, left the orphanage when his grandmother gained custody of him, but it has maintained a place in his heart ever since. Neil Patton, a member of the former school board of directors, said the promise to maintain the grotto and the Stations of the Cross loomed large as the site was sold. It really gave us comfort, even though it was a difficult time, said Patton. This is something that generations beyond us will be able to enjoy.
The committee includes McGowan, representatives from the CBA, the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa, Kevin Roy, who has overseen 2 previous restoration efforts, and former Senator Stephen Panagiotakos and Mike Kunzler, both of whom have raised money to restore the area in the past. Elsewhere on the property, McGowan is already working to build market-rate housing in the portion of the building that was formerly the Franco-American School, while the historic Frederick Eyre Mansion is being restored to include office space. The real jewel of the whole thing is the grotto, said Willett. It's going to be a showpiece, and we're going to build it so it's there in perpetuity. The park that will be created will include new walking paths, new plantings, benches, and access to the park from both School and Pawtucket streets. The Stations of the Cross will be moved behind the grotto, so they're next to the Northern Canal and visible even from the O'Donnell Bridge, according to Willett. Willett said the project is being structured so that even if someone buys the land where the school and mansion sit someday, they won't ever be able to destroy the grotto and the stations. Rich or poor, black or white, it's for everybody, said McGowan. I've never been involved in something I feel better about. McGowan estimated the group may seek to raise about $1 million for the park. He encouraged anyone interested in donating to stay tuned. A timeline for the project's completion is not yet available. McGowan warned that as work progresses, there will be some times when the site is briefly closed to the public for safety, but those closures will be only temporary. McGowan said he's been struck since taking over the property by the sheer number of people who visit the site. He estimated that 4,000 to 5,000 candles have been lit and left at the site in just the year and a half since the partnership bought it. It's incredible since we've taken it over to see the constant flow of people saying prayers or lighting candles, said Willett. Our next story, Impassioned Pleas Over Regional Dispatch in Chelmsford by Alana Melanson. Our dateline is Chelmsford. Joining a regional dispatch center could provide savings for the town and professional advancement opportunities for dispatchers, but concerns about the potential for slower response times and the loss of knowledgeable dispatchers abound. Dispatcher Lisa Demers said, when maps and computers inevitably go down, nothing's going to replace people that know where things are. After initially deciding against it 3 years ago, the Board of Selectmen is now re-examining whether it should join Tewksbury and Draycote in the planned Northern Middlesex Regional Communication Center. Construction on the Tewksbury Base Center is expected to begin in October. Selectmen heard presentations and input from those on both sides of the issue at their meeting Monday night. Town manager Paul Cohen said Chelmsford would save an estimated $541,000 in operational and equipment expenses annually by joining the center and still be able to have 2 dedicated dispatchers per shift. However, that savings would be reduced by about $200,000 in order to keep the police department lobby staffed at all times. Cohen highlighted a number of other benefits of regionalizing, including increased staffing during events and emergencies, state grant funding, and professional growth opportunities for dispatchers. State 911 Department Executive Director Frank Posniak said, regionalizing presents an opportunity for state funding for a number of aspects, including technology support. He said he'd witnessed at other regional centers how dispatchers have moved up into supervisory and director positions. Police Chief Jim Spinney didn't offer a direct recommendation as to which way he thinks the town should go. He said he recognizes the potential benefits, but also has concerns about making such a huge change when police and dispatchers work well together to respond to calls. In place of the 2 dispatchers per shift, Spinney said he would need to make 4 new hires to keep an officer at the front window at all times. He said there was discussion about putting a clerk there, but he decided an officer is needed to be able to handle the variety of challenging situations that can occur in the lobby. Spinney also noted a $500,000 investment in the town's dispatch center, a complete remodel with state-of-the-art equipment, about a year and a half ago. Fire Chief Gary Ryan took a similar tone to Spinney, but said he'd rather have a seat at the table sooner than later. If Chelmsford gets in now, Ryan said, the town can be involved in choosing a director and operational software, among other decisions. "If this is going to happen, I want to have some input," said Ryan. The town's dispatchers union remains against regionalization and believes Chelmsford should retain its community-based dispatch. Dispatcher Richard Demers said, "Quick thinking by knowledgeable, experienced dispatchers enhances the safety of police, firefighters, and the community." He gave an example of a manhunt for a bank robber that attempted to steal 2 cars before taking off on foot through the woods. Richard Demers' own quick decision-making helped police to get on the right track to find the man, call in additional resources, and resulted in a call to put the Westlands School on lockdown during the search, he said. In the 3 years since Chelmsford has last discussed regional dispatch, the town has made many investments in its own dispatch center because it knows the system works, said Richard Demers. Meanwhile, Dracut and Tewksbury have not done that, he said. They sat there and waited while that big carrot was sitting out in front of them, hoping that the state would come through. The town is ahead of everybody. Let's keep it that way, he said, to applause from other dispatchers and supporters in the audience. Selectmen will hear additional input on regionalization at their next meeting. Next up, Medicare cards should arrive in the mail soon. This is a Sun staff report, and our dateline is Lowell. Massachusetts residents should expect their new Medicare cards to arrive in the mail soon, but without their Social Security numbers. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS, has taken that extra step to help protect against fraud. Instead, there will be a randomly assigned Medicare number on the card. Removing Social Security numbers from Medicare cards is one of the many ways CMS is committed to putting patients first and improving the consumer healthcare experience, said Ray Hurd, Regional Administrator for the Boston and New York regional offices of CMS. This change not only protects Medicare patients from fraud, but also safeguards taxpayer dollars by making it harder for criminals to use Social Security numbers to falsely bill Medicare for care services and benefits that were never performed. There will be a 21-month transitional period allowing healthcare providers to use the newly issued Medicare numbers or Social Security numbers. As soon as Medicare cards are received, CMS recommends safely and securely destroying the old ones. CMS suggests those with Medicare benefits follow these tips to avoid scams. Do not pay for a new Medicare card. Medicare will not contact you for personal information or your Medicare number to obtain a new card. Only provide your Medicare number to doctors, pharmacists, other healthcare providers, insurers, and people you trust to work with Medicare for you. Finally, safeguard your card. Our next headline, Facebook post could spark legal action in Dracut, by Amaris Castillo. Our dateline is Dracut. Superintendent of Schools Stephen Stone has responded to a post on the Facebook page belonging to the Dracut Connection that alleges 2 teachers and an administrator were fired for inappropriate conduct. It has come to my attention that a privately managed social media site has posted allegations related to the Dracut Public Schools, said Stone in a written statement. Those spurious and provocative allegations are entirely without merit, as these baseless and defamatory comments could undermine the confidence in the school district. I have referred the matter to council for review. On July 13, an administrator for the Dracut Connection posted that the story was still developing and that information is still coming in from several sources. Allegedly, 2 teachers and an administrator have been fired for inappropriate conduct, read the post. One teacher had inappropriate conduct with a student, the other with a staff member. The administrator allegedly with an unknown adult on school property. It was not immediately clear who wrote the post on the Facebook page. The Dracut Connection, which airs on Dracut Access Television, is hosted by Brian Bond, George Bogue, John Zimini, and Gordy Scott. A voicemail message and email were left Monday for Bond, and a private message to the show's Facebook page were not immediately returned. We are not investigating any employee of the district, Police Chief Peter Bartlett said on Monday. We have no cases involving anybody over there. Stone did not immediately respond to a request for further comment. Michael McNamara, who sits on DATV's board of directors, said this was the first he'd heard of the allegations and of Stone's response. McNamara said Bond is a producer, and producers are responsible for their own content unless it involves DATV. Bond also sits on the DATV board of directors. I'm not surprised. Shows like this and radio shows, etc., thrive on controversy. So, if they don't have any controversy, they don't exist, said McNamara. That's pretty much where I am with programs that are provocative like that. Michael Dobbs, a production technician for DATV, said the show's Facebook page is run entirely by the show's producers, not DATV. School committee member Sabrina Heisey said the committee doesn't get involved in personnel matters within the school district. As far as I know, there's no truth at all to it. And I back Stephen Stone, said Heisey. When I saw that post, I said, that doesn't ring any bells. This isn't the first time the Draycott Connection has gotten into hot water for its content. In 2016, longtime DATV volunteers Bob and Gay Corey sought a criminal complaint against Bond after he allegedly threatened to kill them during an episode of the Draycott Connection. Police ordered Bond to turn in a shotgun he owned while the matter was pending, but a criminal complaint was never issued after the Coreys appeared before a Lowell District Court judge. Well, let's turn next to some local politics. In this article, 3rd District Dems spar in a cagey and frantic debate. Written by Chris Lisinski, our dateline is Concord. All 10 Democrats in the 3rd Congressional District crammed into a community center stage Monday night, so close their elbows were touching, for a forum that was crowded, rushed, and at points strange. 2/3 of the way through the evening's allotted time, each candidate had only answered 2 questions. Barbara L'Italienne made frequent references to her unusual Trump-criticizing morning appearance on Fox News, the result of her campaign capitalizing on a booking error. At one point, a candidate gave out his phone number to the entire audience. The conversation had few substantial developments. Candidates still broadly agreed on most policies. In one sequence, all 10 raised their hands in agreement on 3 questions in a row and approached the debate with warm demeanors. But as the September 4 primary draws closer, it's apparent the race is becoming more frantic, more heated, even cagier. Candidates frequently ignored the basis of questions on Monday night, instead pivoting to well-rehearsed points about their backgrounds or their priorities. They sparred more frequently than they had in past forums. They also made unusual ploys. Dan Coe asked to make a rebuttal after his opponents finished answering a question about their top 3 priorities if elected. He did not go after any of the other candidates, though, or respond to a remark that had been made about him. Instead, his rebuttal was a tirade against President Donald Trump. I just wanted to quickly point out that all of the issues we're talking here have about one factor that's driving it first and foremost that should be the issue top of everyone's mind, Donald Trump and how we get this man out of office, said Coe. Every single one of these issues, gun control, health care, the environment, is being driven by a madman in the White House who isn't fit for office. I think any person who wants to seek this seat first and foremost needs to be fighting and standing up to this president on every single issue. During an answer later in the evening, Coe recited his cell phone number into the microphone, asking the audience of hundreds to copy it down and call him if they ever wanted to discuss the race. Because of the format, each candidate did not get an opportunity to answer every question. The event, organized by League of Women Voter branches in Concord, Carlisle, and Acton, began with a forum for candidates in the 14th Middlesex District state representative race, leaving only 75 minutes for the 10 Democrats in the 3rd District race to share their views. In the answers they did give, they sometimes had to rush. Rufus Gifford joked about the difficulty of compressing his life story when attempting to discuss his journey into politics and his time working for former President Barack Obama. All 10 were asked, though, how they are funding their campaigns, prompting candidates to target one another in some of the sharpest exchanges seen on the trail so far. Alexandra Chandler, revealing that the median donation to her campaign was $27, said fundraising from wealthy donors distorts your viewpoint in an apparent reference to her opponents. Juana Matias criticized a system that she said puts lower-income candidates at a disadvantage. L'Italian and Lori Trahan found themselves rebutting one another's rebuttals on the topic of money. Trahan began by calling out the influence of Beacon Hill lobbyist money, an apparent reference to L'Italian's role as a state senator. L'Italian responded by claiming that Trahan's fundraising benefited from her decade of work as an aide to former U.S. Representative Marty Meehan. After the moderator declined to grant Trahan another rebuttal, Bij Das entered with his own. I love seeing the establishment candidates argue about who borrowed from who, he said. It's time for new blood. I'm not a politician, and it's time for new blood. Perhaps the most symbolic moment of the night came in the next question when Matthias, following candidates whose answers diverged, asked the moderator to remind her what the question was. The audience laughed. In more political news, we have in the 3rd District race, Western towns feel attention from few candidates. Written by Chris Lazinski, our dateline is Fitchburg. When Mayor Stephen DiNatale announced last week he was backing Rufus Gifford in the crowded 3rd Congressional District primary, he did not mince words about the decision. Gifford, DiNatale said, earned the endorsement by being in town more than anyone. For 2 months, Gifford was the only candidate in the race with an official office in Fitchburg, a city of 40,000 near the line. 40,000 people near the line between Worcester and Middlesex counties. Dan Coe, one of Gifford's opponents, opened an office in the city last week, but besides those two, none of the 10 Democrats in the primary has a campaign outpost west of Hudson. Although candidates stress they focus on all communities equally, the uneven concentration of offices to the district's east, particularly in Lowell, underscores what may become an important dynamic in the race's final weeks. In a crowded race across a diverse district, votes can be found all over. Anything you can do to break out from the field and differentiate yourself is good, said Paul Weiser, a professor of political science at Fitchburg State University. It's a strategy of at least one campaign to say, we're going to differentiate ourselves from others by focusing on this portion of the district. Most candidates have spent time in the area, and several have picked up endorsements from members of local boards and Democratic town committees. Coe opened an office last week, and Gardner Public Figures will host an event to support him next week. In interviews, both Gifford and Coe declined to describe their interest in the region as a distinct campaign strategy. Gifford believes he will do well in Western towns because of his efforts, but stressed that Fitchburg efforts are about the same campaign we're running anywhere else. Coe approached the topic in virtually the same way. I see every single city and town in every region as a pathway here, said Coe. We can't take any region for granted, and it's really important that every candidate in the race show that they care about the entire region. But Weiser, who is not affiliated with or in favor of any candidate, said he noticed Gifford's presence in the Western region more than any other candidate, as did Bill McSheehy, secretary of Fitchburg's Democratic City Committee and an early Gifford supporter. I'll be honest with you, I'm biased, but I think the only candidate who's consistently paid attention to Fitchburg is Rufus, said McSheehy. He's had an office in Fitchburg for months. He's visited Fitchburg not just a couple of times, but dozens of times. McSheehy said he believes other candidates have since ramped up their interest in the greater Fitchburg area, although, in his opinion, they are late to the party. Electoral realities may account for varying attention by geography. Although voters in Fitchburg favored Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election by almost 20 percentage points, 5 of the district's 8 towns that swung for Donald Trump are in the western half. Last year, Republican Dean Tran won a special election for the state Senate district covering most of the region. There are fewer votes at stake, too. In the 2016 Democratic presidential primary, the communities of Ashburnham, Ashby, Fitchburg, Gardner, Lunenburg, Townsend, Westminster, and Winchendon accounted for a total of 15,135 ballots cast, just 395 more than Lowell alone. So although planting a fig in the district's western communities is likely to have a tangible impact, exactly how much that strategy matters to the outcome is uncertain. Weiser stressed that, in such a crowded race with so many candidates remaining viable, someone could win the primary election with only 20% of the vote, a small enough margin that almost any trend or action, such as Gifford or Coe's attention to Greater Fitchburg, could appear consequential. If Gifford wins the race, we'll look back and say, that was a winning strategy, said Weiser. But if he doesn't, we'll look at whoever wins and say, they were smart in that regard, too. Well, that wraps up today's edition of the Lowell Sun. I'm Laura Kerrigan. Thank you for listening to the Talking Information Center Network.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
Hi, this is volunteer reader Bob Kay, broadcasting from Springfield, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Lawrence Eagle.
This is Jerry. The Lawrence Eagle, Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. Methuen Police Superiors to file wage complaint. Union. The City Council action puts contract talks back to square one. By Lisa Kaczynski. Methuen. The Police Superiors Union is preparing to file a wage violation complaint against the city over ongoing issues with its contracted wages, according to the union's president and attorney. The move comes after the City Council voted last week to cut more than $1.8 million in funding from the police budget in the process of approving a $167 million overall fiscal 2019 budget for the city. The union and city officials had reached a compromise to reduce Superior Office's contracted salaries to a level the city said it could afford. But the agreement outlined not to fund the reduced salaries and positions. The MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is void, and we are unfortunately back to square one, the Superiors Union said in a statement through its attorney Gary Nolan on Monday. Captain Greg Gallant, president of the Methuen Police Superior Officers Union, said the council's actions last week violate the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding reached earlier in the month to reduce the financial impact of the salary increases. Officials feared paying the contracted salaries in full could have bankrupted the city. The statement released Monday says the union has started the contractual grievance process and is now preparing to move forward with claims for damages under the Wage Act. Last year, Methuen's mayor and city council approved contracts that included raises set to take effect on July 1st that would have seen superior officers netting average overall salary increases upward of 98%. The steep raises were the result of the stacking of many benefits into officers' base pay, a new method of calculation included in the contracts that significantly inflated salaries, according to the city auditor. Ancillary benefits included in the Quinn Bill education incentive and holiday pay. So let me read that again. Ancillary benefits include the Quinn Bill education incentive and holiday pay. With superior officers' pay based on a percentage of salary of the highest paid officer in the rank below them, those salaries further compound up the chain of command. Under the city's auditor's interpretation of the original contracts, the police department's 5 captains would have each earned $434,841 on average in total pay. 7 lieutenants would have each earned an average of $268,935 in total pay. The 13 sergeants would have each earned an average of $189,252 in total pay, according to the auditor's calculations. The City and Superiors Union reached a compromise on July 10th. In it, each captain would earn $188,206 in average total pay. Each lieutenant's average pay would be $158,377, and each sergeant's average total pay would be $127,785, based on 12 sergeants instead of 13, after an officer retired in June. Instead of the 98% increases, ranking officers under the new agreement would have seen an average overall salary increase of 18.7%, according to the city. The new salaries for each officer were outlined in a memorandum of understanding signed by the union and the mayor's chief of staff on July 18th. But the document included a stipulation that if any changes were made to the agreed-upon salaries, the deal would be voided. Without voting on the memorandum, the City Council went ahead and cut $1.825 million from the portion of the police budget pertaining to salaries, leaving it up to the mayor and police chief to figure out how to fund the 24 ranking officer positions. In response, the Superiors Union Monday said it was moving ahead with legal action it had threatened for weeks should the contract talks not come to a favorable resolution. We met several times with the city to hammer out a compromise that let the city off the hook for a significant amount of its contractual obligation, while at the same time preserve our jobs and compensation that is commensurate with the dangers of modern-day law enforcement, the Superiors Union statement reads. At this point, the issue is a legal one. Nolan, the union attorney, has said previously failure to pay officers proper wages in full could result in the city's having to pay triple damages plus attorney fees for each employee not paid their contract salaries. City officials also confirmed Monday that the police dispatchers union filed a wage violation complaint late last week. The dispatchers' issue comes from not receiving contracted 2% salary increases this month because the city has been operating on a 1-month or 1 to 12 budget that funded salaries at fiscal year 2018 levels. Paul Fahey, the mayor's chief of staff, who participated in the union talks on the mayor's behalf because Jagunga's son is a police captain and therefore creates a conflict of interest, said the mayor's office is still reviewing the budget and the impact with the issues on the superiors. He said the mayor's office will be taking action when we're ready. Looking for a lotto luck. Customers flood Ted's Mobile seeking their fortune. Methuen. Hope hung heavily in the air Monday afternoon at Ted's State Line Mobile on Route 28 as people from near and far bought Mega Millions tickets, each one wishing, and perhaps also praying, that he or she might win a prize estimated at $512 million. Several were asked what they planned to do with all that money should they beat the odds and claim the big bucks. "Share it with family and make some donations," said Karen Room of Windham, New Hampshire, who bought 2 tickets for Mega Millions. Joseph D'Amato, a former longtime Somerville resident who now lives in Salem, New Hampshire, said he usually buys just 2 Mega Million tickets at a time. "If he wins," he said, "my kids and grandkids will like it." Room and D'Amato are among numerous New Hampshire residents who buy lottery tickets at Ted's, according to current owner Anthony Amico. He noted this provides at least a partial reverse of the usual economic traffic, with so many Massachusetts residents crossing the state line to take advantage of the lower Granite State prices for liquor, cigarettes, gasoline, and other merchandise. Ted's State Line Mobile is the #1 lottery agent in the state, Amico said. Total winnings for his customers in 2017 were $11,613,313, according to figures posted on a wall in the store. The number for the previous year was $11,353,430. The walls are plastered with pictures of and newspaper articles about people who bought their winning tickets here. In Massachusetts, the state treasurer runs the lottery. The current occupant of that office, Deborah Goldberg, has not yet visited Ted's, but at least 3 of her predecessors have. Stephen Grossman, Timothy Cahill, and Joe Malone are pictured handing out huge checks to lucky recipients. While Ted's sells gasoline, cold drinks, and snacks, lottery tickets are the main fare. Customers can buy tickets from vending machines or from 3 or 4 tellers who are adept at handling rapid-fire requests, according to Amico. "It's simple," Amico said, when asked how Ted's achieved its high-volume success. "When a customer buys a ticket, there's very little waiting," he said. They don't want to wait, he noted. All of the Massachusetts lottery games, including Keno, Quick Picks, Mass Cash, and Megabucks, are sold here. Scratch tickets are very popular, he said. People like instant gratification, he noted. Sure enough, Eileen Guillermo of Methuen got some instant gratification Monday afternoon when she paid $10 for a 100 times scratch ticket and won $50. Guillermo, who teaches English as a second language at Greater Lawrence Technical School, said she ordinarily doesn't gamble, but she was accompanying her mother, Lucy Guillermo of Lawrence. Both women said they bought 5 tickets for Mega Millions. Build a house from scratch, Irene said when asked what she would do if she wins the big lottery. She added she will also set up a college fund for her 2 children and do some traveling. Lucy Guillermo, who works as a supervisor for the Lawrence Housing Authority, said her chances of winning that $500 million prize are not good. I would just help my family, she said, if one of her tickets fetches the jackpot Tuesday night. A dozen or so customers were in the store Monday afternoon. Some bought a single ticket and left. Others stuck around and purchased several. Both Ashley Cormier, an employee, and Amico said it was a slow day Tuesday. They predicted would be much busier because the winning number will be drawn that night. The proceeds of the lottery sales go into the Massachusetts General Fund. Much of that revenue goes to cities and towns, so all those people buying lottery tickets are helping the Bay State pay its bills. Sharon Fry of Maiden, retired from the General Electric plant in Lynn, is among those thousands of customers. She estimates that she spends about $80 a week on lottery tickets. Over the years, she has done fairly well with her purchases, winning as much as $4,000 on one ticket and $2,000 on two others. I like Keno, she said. What if she wins the Mega Millions? Take care of my family, give some to my children, and travel around the world, she said. Haverhill man indicted on rape assault charges by Mike LaBelle. Haverhill. A Haverhill man who continues to be held without bail on charges of assaulting women saw his case moved from district court to superior court, where the potential punishment is greater. Kevin McCarthy, 47, of 164 Golden Hill Ave, was indicted by an Essex grand jury on June 21st for rape, strangulation or suffocation, assault, and battery, 3 counts, and assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, 4 counts. McCarthy was scheduled to be arraigned on the new charges on Monday in Salem Superior Court, but after his defense lawyer did not appear, Judge Timothy Feely postponed the hearing to August 2nd. McCarthy continues to be held at the Middlesex House of Correction, according to court documents. McCarthy is represented by Haverhill defense lawyer Scott Gleason. The case is being prosecuted by Essex Assistant District Attorney Kimberlyn Gillespie. McCarthy was arrested August 21, 2017, on a warrant for multiple assault charges. He was arraigned on the charges the following day in Haverhill District Court, temporarily located in the Newburyport District Courthouse. McCarthy was charged by Haverhill Police with 3 counts of assault and battery, 4 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and 1 count of strangulation. McCarthy has a lengthy criminal history, now more than 90 charges since mid-1988, and a status as a Level 2 sex offender. According to a police report, the charges stem from incidents which began in June 2016. According to the police report, McCarthy assaulted his girlfriend, a Methuen woman, on multiple occasions, hitting her twice on June 18, 2016. On November 5, 2016, McCarthy is alleged to have struck her once with a ring and once with a door, and then strangled her until she could not breathe. 2 days later, McCarthy is alleged to have struck his girlfriend again with both his hand and her cell phone. On December 30, 2016, according to the police report, McCarthy held a knife to her throat. The alleged victim, who obtained a restraining order from Lawrence District Court after coming to police, told officers that in addition to being hit with fists and objects, McCarthy had held a knife to her throat in January of 2017 and threatened to kill her. She said that McCarthy told her he is in control and that if she said anything, he would get 2.5 years in jail. Most of the recent indictments against McCarthy stem from alleged assaults that occurred in November of 2016. The rape charge stems from a June 2017 incident, while one of the assault and battery with a dangerous weapon charges dates back to December 29, 2016 and January 2, 2017. Teen saves his best friend from drowning. 14-year-old had seizure while swimming. Friend keeps him above water. By Joshua Carney. Pelham. A 14-year-old boy acted quickly to help his best friend when a sudden seizure almost caused him to drown on Saturday. Matthew Brooks of Danville was playing, fishing and swimming with his friends at an 8th grade graduation party on a Pelham pond when he suffered a seizure while in the water. Brooks' friend, Ethan Jerry of Atkinson, noticed that he was not coming up for air and held him up while underwater until others were able to help bring him ashore. Ethan noticed his eyes rolling back, and he fell into the water and went under and wasn't coming up, Tiffany Paliono, Matthew Brooks' mother, said. Ethan stayed underwater so he could hold Matthew up. I am so thankful for what he did, Matthew Brooks said. Jerry remained submerged, swallowing water, holding his friend high enough until and the others were able to bring Brooks back to shore. Jerry held up Brooks by his feet while treading water, according to the Pelham Fire Department. Pelham Fire responded to near drowning reported at a house along the Pelham Pond after 911 was called. I can't remember anything, Brooks said of the moments between when he passed out and remembered waking up in an ambulance. An ambulance brought Brooks to Holy Family Hospital in Methuen, where he underwent tests to determine the cause of the seizure. The only other time that he suffered a seizure was at age 3 due to a spiked fever, according to Paulino. The two boys have been best friends since first grade and will be attending Timberlane Regional High in the fall. As for what Brooks has to say to his best friend, thank you for doing what you did. Methuen schools begin recalling laid-off teachers by Lisa Kaczynski, Methuen. Superintendent of Schools Judith Scannell has begun the process of recalling dozens of teachers and staff members laid off from the public schools amid the city's budget debacle. But the delay in passing the fiscal year 2019 budget, a process that should have concluded before the end of the previous fiscal year on June 30th, but instead consumed more than half of July, led at least 7 teachers to leave the district in search of more secure paychecks, Scannell said on Monday. Scannell said the teachers who moved on to other districts were mostly younger and were spooked by instability within the city budget. They're very concerned about their paycheck. They need to move forward, and I get that. I really do, Scannell said. I'm very sad that we have lost some wonderful young, passionate teachers, but I understand. Scannell handed out pink slips to 85 staff members in late May amid the early stages of the city's budget crisis. Among those laid off were 52 teachers, 15 program assistants, 9 administrators, 7 secretaries, and 2 unaffiliated staffers, typically secretaries who are not part of a unit contract, according to the district. The layoffs occurred after Mayor James Jajuga said he could only give the school district $76 million in fiscal 2019, despite an $82.5 million request from the school committee. Scannell said at the time she was contractually obligated to begin the layoffs, even though the budget was not finalized. Following weeks of public outcry from the school community, including rallies in and outside of city council meetings, Scannell and Jajuga struck a compromise to give the schools $78 million and another roughly $500,000 in ancillary contributions. The extra $2 million would allow Scannell to recall the 52 layoffs